How long, O Lord, shall I cry out and you not listen? Most prophets in the Hebrew Bible delivered God's message to the people. Habakkuk does something almost unthinkable. He delivers the people's message to God, and it's not a prayer, it's an accusation. This is the moment the Bible confronts one of humanity's oldest philosophical problems. If God is just, why do the wicked prosper? To understand why this complaint is so radical, we need to understand what every other prophet was saying. The setting, Jerusalem, roughly 600 to 587 BCE. The Babylonian Empire is bearing down on Judah. The city faces destruction. Here's the timeline. Assyria falls around 612 BCE. Nebuchadnezzar rises to power after the Battle of Carchemish in 605. Babylon besieges Jerusalem for the first time in 597 and destroys the city and its temple in 587. Habakkuk writes somewhere in this final stretch. And most prophets of this era interpret the catastrophe the same way. Judah sinned, so God is punishing them through Babylon. This is the Deuteronomistic framework, the theological logic running from Deuteronomy through Kings. It explains history as a cycle. Sin leads to punishment. Punishment leads to repentance. Repentance leads to restoration. Suffering always has a reason. It's deserved. God's justice is visible in history. Habakkuk rejects this entirely. He looks at the same catastrophe and says, the righteous are suffering while the wicked prosper. That's not justice. That's the opposite of justice. In chapter 1, verses 13 and 14, Habakkuk pushes further. He accuses God directly. You stand idle while the one in the wrong devours the one in the right. Then he reaches for a devastating metaphor. He says God has made humanity like fish of the sea, like creeping things with no ruler. Picture that. A world stripped of moral order, no scales of justice, just predation. The big fish eats the small fish. Raw power, not righteousness, governs everything. This isn't a complaint about one bad event. It's a challenge to the entire structure of divine justice. God responds in chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. The answer acknowledges the Babylonians as instruments of judgment, but offers something unexpected. God tells Habakkuk, the righteous shall live by their faith. The Hebrew word is emunah. It means faithfulness, steadfastness, fidelity, not just belief, but endurance. God asks the prophet to trust that justice will come, even when all evidence points against it. The answer is real, but it's not a solution. It's a demand for patience in the face of visible injustice. Habakkuk's question doesn't just challenge the theology of his own time, it opens a door that will never fully close. That door has a name, Theodicy. Theodicy is the attempt to reconcile the existence of evil and suffering with the belief in an all-powerful, just God. The German philosopher Leibniz coined the term in 1710, but Habakkuk posed the problem 2,300 years earlier, and he's not alone in the Hebrew Bible. Job wrestles with undeserved suffering. Ecclesiastes questions whether life has any moral logic at all. The Psalms of Lament cry out in anguish. But Habakkuk is the most pointed prophetic engagement with this problem. He doesn't just feel the pain, he names the contradiction. Here's the critical intellectual bridge. Habakkuk's resolution, justice will come, but not yet, contains the DNA of apocalyptic thinking. Apocalyptic literature envisions a dramatic, cataclysmic end time when God finally brings judgment and vindication. The key shift works like this. When justice cannot be found in the present, it gets projected into a dramatic future. Habakkuk plants that seed. Post-exilic prophets like Zechariah and parts of Isaiah develop visions of future restoration. And by the time we reach Daniel and Revelation, the pattern is fully formed, patient waiting for a final divine reckoning. Habakkuk is the hinge point. Chapter 3 of Habakkuk shifts tone dramatically. God appears as a warrior, thundering from the east, shaking mountains, splitting rivers, avenging Israel's oppressors. Scholars debate what to make of this. One reading, this is Habakkuk's own vision. his expression of faith in the future divine vengeance God promised. The other reading, a later editor added this chapter, trying to resolve the tension the prophet deliberately left open. Either way, the ambiguity is instructive. It mirrors the unresolved tension at the heart of theodicy itself. Habakkuk matters because he refuses the easy answer. He won't accept that the suffering of the righteous is simply deserved. He won't pretend the world is fair. And God's answer, live by faith, is both profound and unsatisfying. That's precisely why it resonates. This tension between demanding justice now and trusting in justice later becomes one of the most powerful engines in Western religious and philosophical thought. Habakkuk asked a question 2,600 years ago that we still haven't fully answered. If God is just, why do the wicked prosper? The Bible's answer isn't a solution, it's a posture, faith held in tension with an unjust world. And that tension gave birth to an entire tradition of apocalyptic hope, the conviction that justice deferred is not justice denied.